Gene Hackman's death changed into already heartbreaking. However, the post-mortem findings revealed something a long way extra disturbing. Gene Hackman's final moments will convey tears on your eyes and depart you, thinking the whole thing become it. Just illness that took him, or did the haunted residence or something even extra sinister play a part in his destiny as traumatic post-mortem info come to mild the mystery. Handiest deepens from the instant Gene Hackman set foot in Santa Fe Zamething. Approximately the vicinity gripped him an unshakable pull, a quiet whisper beneath the desert wind it began, along with his movie tasks inside the area. But quickly, the attraction grew into something deeper, something nearly eerie. He and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, felt forced to stay interested in a residence that seemed to name them before everything. Look, it turned into not anything greater than an aging structure in need of repair. However, beneath its worn-out doors, there was an undeniable presence. An air of something watching ready. Hackman failed to shy away. He embraced the mystery, enlisting the nearby organization Studio Architectura to assist him reshape the domestic. But because the partitions had been stripped and new foundations laid, it became clean. This turned into no normal upkeep. It had a type of magic in it. Hackman himself said approximately the house he sold the property due to the fact he favored the vicinity, and then asked Santa Fe architects Harry D.L. and Steven Samuelson from Studio Architectura to help turn the residence into the home. He had imagined the house became nothing extra than a decaying shell, a forgotten 50s block, constructing abandoned to the factors. Its partitions cracked, its spirit hollow. Architect Steven Samuelson didn't mince phrases. It become horrible. He admitted, however, the land it become best the inspirations at precisely wherein it have to, as though it belonged there. Hackman and his spouse, Betsy Arakawa, weren't searching out a traditional Pueblo fashion home they desired. Something specific, something sizable, open, filled with light. However, as they began to transform the residence, it have become clear that this became no ordinary maintenance. The first step was drastic. Almost 90% of the roof changed into ripped away as though peeling returned layers of a forgotten past, with the ceiling lifted to towering heights, a few reaching 20 feet. The distance breathed again, but that was simplest. The start, walls, came crashing down, their secrets and techniques spilling into the dirt in which there had, as soon as been small confining rooms. A grand corridor emerged, anchored by using massive tree trunk columns. The air itself seemed to shift, developing hotter, more alive. Hackman predicted a place wherein area flowed freely, in which rooms related in a way that felt both expansive and intimate. I wanted a remarkable hall feeling, he said now, note a maze of closed-off rooms, and so their silence took form, a blend of patterns that refused to comply with any unmarried way of life. Element Pueblo part, colonial New Mexico part, Spanish Baroque. It turned into, now not specific, no longer polished by the point the transformation was whole. The residence no longer felt deserted. It pulsed with power, with song from Hackman's cutting-edge stereo system echoing through the high ceilings. The heavy wooden doorways creaked inside the wind, and at night shadows moved differently across the partitions, as if the residence itself had been awakened, cozy yet big, primitive but subtle. Hackman had owned different homes before, but this one turned into not like any of them his Monteo house have been formal controlled. But this place, this area had a presence. Gene Hackman approached the design of his home like a filmmaker crafting an phantasm. He failed to need the indoors to look freshly built. He wanted it to sense as if it had elderly, evidently, over a long time, accumulating layers of history and man or woman. The residence is new, he defined, but we attempted to make it appearance 100 years old or more. He insisted on subtle imperfections, water stains on the plaster as if from antique leaks, darkened patches that mimicked years of smoke. Publicity. The plasterers had been skeptical at first, struggling to apprehend why everybody might want to make a brand new house appearance. Worn and aged, however, Hackman become continual, and the result became lovely. The wall step by step shifted in color, creating depth and shaping areas without disrupting the open go with. The flow of the house in the doorway corridor, as an example, teal diminished into tan, forming a seamless transition between the outside and interior. The equal philosophy implemented to the ceiling beams. Cutting-edge timber wasn't enough. It had to look like it had seen time. Each beam was reshaped, burned, beaten with chains, repainted, and then stripped lower back time and again until it carried the patina of age. Hackman additionally wanted stamped tin ceilings in sure rooms. However, none of the available styles felt proper. Alternatively, he brought in a local artisan to create a custom layout that matched. His imaginative and prescient, precisely. Hackman wasn't just overseeing the manor, he was deeply involved in every element. He laid out the ground plan for the architects, handpicked the kitchen information, or even joined in at the demolition paintings. As a professional painter, Hefton combined colorings himself, displaying the proper shades he desired. Every corner of the residence bore his personal touch, transforming it into something extra than a domestic something, almost cinematic. A place wherein time itself regarded to blur whilst it came to furnishing their domestic home. Hackman and his spouse didn't need the typical Santa Fe style as an alternative. They chose a mix of portions from exceptional places. We bought a few matters in Santa Fe, Hackman said, but we also found antiques. At auctions in New York, a shop in Germany, and Los Angeles, it is a pleasant combo of smooth, southwestern fixtures and formidable, difficult-edged antiques. To deliver the whole thing collectively, they enlisted Santa Fe designers Ken Figuro and Glenn Gomez, whom they fondly known as our indoors collaborators. The end result changed into a perfect balance. Santa Fe's earthy shades and curved forms blended seamlessly with Theric traditionalism of European antiques. Massive, colorful add-ons tied it all together, growing a space that felt curated but effortless. The residence turned into by no means meant to be a showcase of recent Mexican arts and crafts. Alternatively, it have become a mirrored image of Hackman's eclectic flavor. A number of the maximum striking portions came from Morocco, together with spice shelves so intricately painted that they gave the look of mosaics this home was no longer supposed for. Endless, exciting, or web hosting big gatherings. It became a retreat, a place wherein Hackman could escape for a few months each year while he wasn't on set right here. Existence bogged down on some days. If the mood struck, he might load his pickup truck with oil paints and a canvas, driving into the mountains to paint. Other instances, he might definitely sink right into a chair within the dwelling room, analyzing or listening to track while the desert outside shifted in color and the clouds drifted over the mountains. Hackman had no way of understanding that the house had powered his coronary heart into would one day become the site of his personal mysterious death, leaving many to wonder, changed into the house always haunted. On February 26, 2025, a maintenance employee arrived at their secluded domestic, unaware that he changed into about to uncover a scene of profound tragedy and unsettling mystery. The employee knocked, however, there has been no answer. In the beginning, he notioned the couple is probably away. However, something felt incorrect. He walked round, checking the doorways and windows. It really is when he observed the front door became barely open, hesitant but worried. He stepped within the house, felt abandoned as he moved. Similarly, and he known as out their names. However, there has been no reaction. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold through a doorway. He spotted a frame mendacity immobile on the floor. It was Gene Hackman. His cane and glasses had been close by, as if he had fallen the worker without delay, subsidized. Away. His arms trembling as he reached for his cell phone to name 911. Police and emergency responders arrived fast the instant they stepped. Inside, they knew something was extraordinarily incorrect. Within the bathroom, near a countertop, lay Betsy Arakawa, a area heater tipped over beside her. There have been capsules scattered close by as though she had been achieving for them in distress. The scene raised immediate questions. Had she collapsed because of an coincidence or became something else at play? Transferring via the home officials found something even extra unsettling. A German shepherd became discovered lifeless, curled up interior lavatory closet. The air within the house was stale as though time had stood still for days. Different dogs have been nevertheless alive, however, seemed susceptible and worried, their eyes darting round nervously in a separate place of the house. In particular, the mudroom government observed the frame of Gene Hackman. A cane and a pair of glasses lay nearby as if he were interrupted mid-motion, perhaps trying to upward push or attain out the sight, hinted at a surprising fall apart without struggle. Investigators stated that there were no apparent wounds on either the Hackman or Arakawa. There had been no symptoms of asthmatin or violence, the front door being slightly open became the best aspect out of vicinity. As detectives surveyed the scene, one component have become clear. This had not took place in a single day. The bodies showed symptoms of decomposition, meaning they'd been there for numerous days earlier than being located. The residence, once a peaceful retreat, had ended up a place of mystery and demise. Why had no person called for help? Why changed into the dog locked away what had absolutely took place? In the one's final moments, the absence of external trauma on both. Trauma on our body's LED investigators to bear in mind. Opportunities such as unintended poisoning or environmental elements, carbon monoxide poisoning, turned into, to begin with, suspected. However, assessments for carbon monoxide and different overseas elements return. But the scattered prescription drugs brought the opportunity of a medical emergency or unintentional overdose. The fact behind Gene Hackman's dying lies in the chilling pages of his autopsy record, its findings so haunting and heartbreaking that they ought to deliver tears on your eyes. However, before revealing the one's grim details, allows first discover what become going on in Hackman's final days best. Then are you able to determine whether or not the autopsy document tells the full tale, or if there is something a long way more unsettling hidden beneath the surface within the months main up to their tragic and mysterious deaths. Gene Hackman's health had been step-by-step declining, according to shut friends of Hackman, the 95-year-old once. Regarded for his habitual motorcycle rides and active way of life, had turned out to be an increasing number of homebound pals recalled that he had given up cycling through the community approximately a year ago, and in his very last months his health was visibly slipping. Daniel and Barbara Lenahan, longtime pals of Hackman, and his spouse, Betsy Arakawa, shared their memories of the couple's final days. Barbara contemplated at the changes she had visible. In Hackman, he ended driving his bike through the community. His health become actually slipping inside the remaining couple of months. In spite of those struggles, Arakawa remained a committed spouse, doing all she should to maintain him engaged and energetic. Arona, another close family buddy, echoed these sentiments, pronouncing she was still trying to preserve him as lively and engaged and as wholesome as feasible. He recalled how Hackman might do puzzles and yoga via Zoom every day, a testimony to Arakawa's efforts to preserve a few normally in his existence. Barbara delivered that Arakawa herself became in incredible health she turned into. So in shape, Pauls described Hackman and Arakawa as an inseparable pair, deeply committed to each other even in their very last days. Aaron pondered on their bond. They were one of the tightest couples I've seen. They regarded like real lifestyles. Partners, genuinely, certainly close to every other. They were each surprisingly type, and that they have been reserved, but they were real and quite a few amusing. Barbara recalled how proud Hackman become of Arakawa, not just as his spouse, however, as an executed musician. Gene turned into a chappie with Betsy, as she was of him. She said, remembering how their domestic pondered their passions, she had been a live performance pianist over. At their residence, she'd a unique constructing a Studio 1-2 of it turned into her grand piano, and the alternative half of was Gene's art studio. However, this account of Hackman's declining health turned into contradicted by using his daughter Leslie. Anne, who insisted her father had been in proper shape earlier than his, passing Speak Me to TMZ. She said he liked to do Pilates and yoga, and he was persevering with to do this numerous instances a week. So he became in exact fitness. Meanwhile, Ashman, a friend of Hackman, for the reason that late 1990s via their shared hobby inside the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, expressed deep remorse approximately now, not staying in nearer contact. You do not suppose approximately it, however, your friend is there. And you discern they're all right, he admitted. I lament the reality that we failed to spend greater time together. Ku, a housekeeper for Arakawa's mother, instructed the Daily Mail that Arakawa used to check in on her own 91-year antique mother. Yoshi feasts her frequently as the latter is scuffling with dementia. However, she delivered Betsy hadn't referred to as her mother in months. She usually called every 1 or 2 months. The housekeeper delivered remaining time she called turned into October. We had been thinking what befell. Ku said the family became concerned over Arakawa's alleged lack of conversation. Now put together yourself for the chilling autopsy, revelations that will haunt you lengthy. after you've heard them, authorities have subsequently released the long-awaited autopsy findings for legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa. Shedding mild at the heartbreaking situations surrounding their death, at a press conference Dr. Heather Gerald, chief health worker for New Mexico Special, the couple's very last days reporters pressed her for answers, in particular about the week-long holy among their deaths, a tragic length that now appears even greater haunting. Dr. Gerald found out a devastating opportunity given Hackman's advanced Alzheimer's. The 95-year vintage actor can also have in no way even found out that his loved wife had passed away. His autopsy found out something unsettling. His stomach became empty, but he confirmed no signs and symptoms of dehydration. Because of this, within the very last days of his existence, he changed into nonetheless able to drink. However, he possibly wasn't ingesting. Whether this was because of confusion, grief, or really his frame shutting down remains unknown. What's sure is that he was already in a completely bad kingdom of health. His coronary heart weakened by way of age and ailment in the end gave out. He became located by myself in the equal house where his spouse had died. Days earlier, Betsy Arakawa's cause of loss of life become showed as high-risk pulmonary syndrome, a rare, however, extraordinarily deadly disorder Pyrus has. No therapy and no direct remedy as soon as it takes. Keep it actions fast. People with have virus infections can to begin with feel flu-like signs and symptoms for kind of 3 to 6 days, and then start to have fluid in and round their lungs at that. Factor A person can die right away within 24-48 hours kind of. Speaking without medical treatment, Gerald stated, it is no longer uncommon to find someone down at the ground as part of a terminal fall apart, so to talk and that may thoroughly had been what befell, and that can very well had been what befell. How did she agreement it? Investigators found rodent interest in structures around the couple's property. Hay virus spreads through rodent urine and droppings, infecting individuals who knowingly breathe in infected air. Dr. Aaron Phipps, a public fitness professional, found out the terrifying fact the have virus strain in the Southwest has a 38% 50% fatality fee. In Arakawa case, the contamination hits suddenly and without scientific remedy. Demise can arise inside simply 24-48 hours. She was final visible alive on February 11th. Some day after that, she probably collapsed on my own and unable to call for help, whilst Hackman possibly died around Feb 18 whilst the remaining hobby became detected. On his pacemaker for an entire week after her death, Hackman remained interior that house, unaware that his spouse was lying dead close by the point government discovered him. He changed into long gone too. However, Hackman did not die from have virus. The virus does now not unfold among human beings, and his autopsy showed he had no longer been inflamed as a substitute. His weak heart subsequently gave out. Dr. Gerald said he had tremendous heart disease, and I assume in the end that's what resulted in his loss of life. Have virus infections are extremely rare. New Mexico said handiest 7 instances in 2024, but they may be lethal. Of 136 confirmed infections in New Mexico during the last 50 years, 42% had been deadly. Authorities warned that people often don't realize that their homes are at hazard. Dr. Phipps defined avoiding touch with rodent urine or feces, in particular in enclosed, poorly ventilated spaces, is fundamental to stopping infection. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa spent over a long time, collectively, deeply devoted to each other, but ultimately destiny tore them aside in the maximum tragic manner. Betsy in all likelihood died unexpectedly, and on my own, Gene lost in the fog of Alzheimer's, spent his final days in a home full of silence, likely awaiting a spouse who became already long past. It's a story that leaves in the back of greater sorrow than answers. How do you experience about this devastating autopsy document? Let us know your mind inside the comments segment. Thanks for watching.